is working through something very similar. And the real opportunity that we have for success, you know, we can't say this in the treatment plan, and we can't say this in the assessment, but the treatment we're really providing is for the people who have been divinely selected to take care of these children. That's the greatest opportunity for breakthrough, is with the people who have been divine. Are y'all hearing what I'm saying? Serving the people who have been divinely selected to nurture and to grow these children. One of the most important things that we can do is to get that relationship with the caretaker and to educate, teach, and influence the caretaker. It is probably the most important thing we can do. See, I don't mind a session that looks like an hour with the parent and 5 minutes with the child. I'm on record with you as the clinical director. I don't mind. We can document clinically what we need to. But what I'm saying is the lion's share of investment has to be with these caretakers. Because whatever we build in the child, I guarantee you, if we haven't gotten to the caretaker and taught them something new, it will not sustain. And we won't be there forever. So,
Can I add something too?
yes, sir.
I think it's also really powerful with the piece that Ashley shared, and I think the information can be a lesson to us as well, a lesson of having a level of sensitivity in understanding the plight of some of the parents, because I mean we've all heard Ashley share how difficult it is and how tough it is, and she's a formally trained social worker.
Absolutely.
She has the insight, she has formal knowledge on how to oversee, manage, engage, and do all this. And we know her, so we know who Ashley is with her work. I mean, it's pretty, we know who she is. So if it's difficult for someone functioning at a high level with the knowledge and insight that Ashley has, imagine what it's like for a parent with less experience, less information, less education, and then you might want to throw in some substance abuse, possibly physical abuse. So you roll all of that stuff in, and you know that's probably going to be a lot of the parents and families that we're working with. So it's a lot difficult. I can imagine it being much more difficult for them. So I think that we should take lessons like that into consideration to help us be more sensitive to what the parents are experiencing.
Absolutely. Any other feedback? Parenting skills. Okay, I'm going to continue through the sequence. However, I left this out for last time. This parenting skills sequence is rooted in teaching. It's rooted in teaching children, not punishing children. This is a model that's structured to facilitate discipline. Now, this is one of the things that we could potentially rub up against. because discipline has a connotation depending on who you're talking to. You know, it has a flavor. Some interpret discipline as punitive. You know, if you do what I required, if you don't, then there will be consequences. And the consequences could be intended to punish and to discourage disobedience. That could be a spanking, that could be, you know, punishing in the sense that you can't go outside, you have to stay in your room and experience some level of hardship, difficulty, or pain. You know, the intent is to impose a painful experience to discourage continuing in that particular behavior. This model is a teaching model, because what this model understands is simply this. Based on our humanity and the natural, innate part of us that has been made to tend to whatever that happens to us that is a threat to our well-being or that hurts us, we have a natural program that whenever we're hurt, whenever we're injured, whenever we're under threat, psychologically, it's going to be very difficult to focus on anything other than your injury. Think about that. If you were walking down this hall, you cut a corner too close, and there was something sticking out from the wall, and it cut your leg, and you realized you were beginning to bleed. However, you were walking swiftly because you were about to go take a call for a client that was in a critical situation. I'm asking you now, what would be your primary focus? Your bleeding leg or the situation that you were going to address? What would you focus on?
Bleeding situation.
You just cut a gash out your leg and you're bleeding. It's coming through your pants. What are you going to focus? You're going to continue to bleed and go, yeah, that's your bad sister.
That's naturally what I do.
Hey,
I place my
serious?
problems
You
aside.
serious?
I would have taken a call prior to you saying it was bleeding through my pants.
Right.
When you said that, I'm like, oh, no, I'm going to
No,
deal with this
I need to
leg.
make it severe. There's some real threat
But
to
if
your
I'm not bleeding
well-being.
through this leg, I'll probably go ahead and take the call.
Oh, okay. All right.
When you said that, I'm like, oh, no, I'm going to deal with this leg.
Yeah. My simple point being that whenever there is some injury or something that has created immense pain or concern for you around your own well-being, your own health, your own life, your attention will be called to that thing and routing all of your internal resources to bringing yourself to safety and healing yourself. If there was a lesson in it, like, you know, we shouldn't be running through the office, the time for me to come and try to give you that lesson would not be while you're bleeding. Because it would not be logical that you could focus on the lesson that I'm trying to teach with blood gushing out your leg. The natural tendency will be for you to focus on the injury. That's why corporal punishment, using punitive approaches to parenting, often miss their intended target. Because if a child is experiencing threat, fear, or pain, they will not focus on the lesson, they will focus on the pain and the person who's facilitating a process that's causing pain. Naturally, they will miss the lesson. And a lot of times, parents try to lecture in the process of providing and extending corporal punishment. Now, this thing happens in a very natural way. I was raised in that manner. I turned out okay. So, you know, in no way am I indicting parents who have opted for that approach. But what I'm simply saying is that if there's not a healthy balance between the teaching and the punitive process in your parenting, then you are potentially setting yourself and your child up for some very difficult outcomes. Very difficult outcomes. So what we've selected in this model is to facilitate a process with our children that always keeps them focused on the lesson. We want to ensure that our parenting approach keeps our children focused on the lesson. We want to teach our parents how to parent their children by keeping them focused on the lesson and not integrating things that would cause distractions for the young person or distractions from you as a caretaker. To discipline means to teach. To discipline means to teach. It means to teach. And so, in this system, in this approach, we get to a point where we acknowledge that positive reinforcement, which we're all familiar with, because that's not a new novel concept. That's as old as the profession itself. It's classic behavioral, their cognitive behavioral approach. It is this, is that we have the tendency to repeat behaviors that we've had an experience that brings us the kind of outcomes and rewards that we seek for ourselves. You know, positive reinforcement is about affirming. It's about rewarding behaviors that we have determined and defined as caretakers that are healthy and productive. And we want to be very purposeful about that. So when we've set that structure and we've put those things in place and we see that our children are sometimes compliant, sometimes non-compliant, we don't want to miss the opportunities when they're compliant to affirm their compliance and to reward them. Now, rewards can be a broad variety of things. It doesn't have to be money, it doesn't have to be a new video game, it doesn't have to be material things. We want to be careful not to send a message that the only advantages and the only compensation that we're really seeking for doing the right thing is material compensation. You know, a reward may just simply be the acknowledgement and the affirmation of your approval. That you have a high level of respect for your child, for having the courage to overcome and do something different. Letting them know that what they just did made you happy, made you proud. You know, that is reinforcing. You know, I'll never forget the time when my children were young. My wife was teaching my children how to swim. My daughter kind of took to it a little quicker than my son, but once he got it, he was just awesome. And I will never forget when he first learned how to go underwater. That was huge for him. And he was able to do it at pools, and we were on a vacation, and I think we were at Virginia Beach, might have been Virginia Beach. And he was apprehensive about doing it in the beach water, like going under in the beach water, because I'm just a more open and larger body of water, and I don't generally get in water. So I'm on, I'm on the shore chilling, lounging, and I hear him call, "Hey, Dad, look at me, I'm getting ready to go in the water." And I'm like, "Yeah, all right, man." And I really wasn't tending to him. He became so passionate that I'm like doing what I'm doing, and I look up, and he's standing right there. He's like dripping wet. He was like, "Dad, you didn't look at me go under."
You missed it.
Yeah. And I'm like, "All right, man, come on, let's walk down." I walked down, looked at him go underwater. I'm like, "Oh, cool." And that's all he did. For probably 2 hours, just go underwater. And I was going crazy, like, "Oh, I did it like 10 seconds that time, man." Now, I mean, go about 10 years later, we were at Orlando. He's probably 15 at this time. We were at Orlando, in one of those big amusement water parks. And they have like these wave pools.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I've been to the one locally. What's that?
Six Flags?
Six. I've been to that one. Like, this one's probably 3-4 times the size of the one that's in Maryland. And going out to the wall would be like, in my opinion, somebody dropping you in the middle of the Atlantic, because these waves was like 15 feet high. The water just seemed so deep. And out of all the people that were there, probably 60% of the people that were in the wave pool wasn't any further than about 20 feet out. Then you had another 20% who was a little further. But out of the 1,000 people that was in that pool, was only 2 people that was back at the wall, and my son was one of them. And he's out there going crazy. They start ringing the bell, ding, 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 ding. He's like, oh. I'm like, how is he doing this? Like, he is ridiculously gifted swimmer. He wouldn't swim in high school. I wanted him to really bad, but he's a ridiculously gifted swimmer. But I remember just when I was telling him how nice it was, him going under, that stuck with him. He felt good about it. It gave him all the confidence and courage he needed to keep going further and further out, further and further out, to now he's mastered just being in the depths, you know? And that positive reinforcement doesn't cost anything. It really just requires our time and our undivided attention and our centralized focus on the goodness and on the gifts and the abilities of our children, and sharing what we are experiencing with them in an authentic and genuine way. Now, that sounds simple, but this is what I absolutely know. If no one's telling you that, if no one's teaching you that as a parent, you can easily miss that. Particularly a parent who's under an extreme amount of stress and managing a lot. You know, certain things are just expected because that's what you're supposed to do. And as a child, sometimes your compliance is not affirmed because the position of the caretaker is that's what you're supposed to do. I'm not going to be, you know, taking time out to really get centrally focused on you doing something you're supposed to do anyway, you know? So that, sharing that with our caretakers, the power of that, you know, the power of our children experiencing your undivided attention around something that they are able to do, how that helps young people to take on greater risks. Yes?
I always have I always hear from parents, they don't want to reward their children or bribe. They always say bribe. I've heard that a lot. Bribe their children for doing things they're supposed to do. And the way I kind of explain that to them is, you know, just humans operate off of some kind of satisfaction. Human beings, period. Baby, adult, doesn't matter. And I always explain to them, like, you know, I could offer you this amazing job, and it might be your dream job, but I may not offer you the salary that you want. So it doesn't seem like it's really worth it for you. You wouldn't be able to pay your bills with this job. You wouldn't get any satisfaction out of it. It wouldn't be the same kind of thing, maybe. You know, it wouldn't be an incentive for you. It wouldn't be motivating for you. And I always explain that the same thing with children. They need some kind of encouragement, some kind of motivation, even if it's that praise that you're talking about and that acknowledgement that you're doing what we want you to do, or that you're trying to do what we want you to do, or you're making efforts, but that acknowledgement is huge. And I always explain it to them, like, just as, you know, you're going for a job and it's not salary that you want, or it's not, you know, the right type of job, it's not motivating. You're not going to want to do it.
Right.
So I always explain it to them in that way, because that's just a human need, that we need that encouragement and that kind of reward. So
Absolutely.
I always think about that when they say bribe, and that positive reinforcement could just be that praise, encouragement.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other feedback on that? Okay. So we've positively reinforced, and we tried to use that as a tool to help encourage and motivate and to affirm our young people. However, after we've cycled through number 4, positive reinforcement, there's still some concerns. We still have some concerns. And so that brings us to number 5, which is probably the most widely recognized and popular intervention from parents, which is rules, limits, and consequences. And so, as we see, there are three components here that are captured in number